This is Calm AF, a podcast for humans who are hard on themselves. A podcast for the overthinkers, people pleasers, perfectionists, and overachievers. I'm Kristen Finch, and I'm going to teach you how to quiet that incessant negative chatter in your head. Because you know what a person with a calm mind can do? Anything they want. Grab your coffee, gorgeous soul, because today's the day you get Calm AF. Hello, gorgeous souls. Welcome to Calm AF. So we are in part 4 of the dysregulated nervous system series, or the nervous system series. Right now, we're talking about the dysregulation parts. So we're part 4. Let's do a 30-second recap of the first 3 parts. So in part 1, I introduced you to this tool that I created called the Calm AF scale. It's a scale that gives you a visual representation of how regulated or dysregulated your nervous system is in any given moment. So this is like a number scale, and it goes on one side from -10 all the way up to the other side, which would be a +10. So the +10 side of the Calm AF scale is the hypervigilance side of the scale. Now, we talked about hypervigilance in part 2 of the series. What you need to remember about this is the prefix hyper. Hyper means over or excessive. So hypervigilant would be like excessively vigilant. It would be overthinking, overworking, overdoing, over vigilant, over aroused. Okay, this side of the scale feels urgent. It feels anxious. This side is very anxious. It feels fast. You're thinking fast. You're moving fast. It might not be in an organized way, but it feels chaotic, right? Like everything is an emergency. The other side of the scale, which we talked about last week in part 3, is hypovigilance. So the prefix hypo means lack of, absence of. So absence of vigilance. The hypovigilance side of the scale feels shut down, numbed out, under-aroused, underworking, stuck. It's hard to get yourself moving. Now, you are still having all the thoughts and feelings in the hypovigilant state, but your reaction to the thoughts and the feelings is, what's the point of trying? Why would I even bother trying? So you numb out in an attempt to quiet down the thoughts and the voice of the hypervigilant side of the scale. Okay? So those are the first 2, hyper and hypovigilance. If you haven't listened to those episodes yet, make sure you go back and listen, because the truth is that everyone experiences all 3 types of dysregulation. So it's important to know how each one shows up for you specifically. But most of us do have a dominant pattern that we spend more time in than the others. If you haven't taken the dysregulation quiz that I created to help you find out which pattern you use, do that. The link is in the show notes. I have been hearing, thank you for those of you who have taken it. There's like, I don't know, a couple hundred people who have taken it. And I just love hearing from people about how it's like so spot on. They're having all these aha moments. And the lessons that come after you take the quiz go deeper into each type. So it's awesome. Make sure that you go and get that quiz. Today, we're going to talk about the third type of dysregulation pattern, which is vacillators. So you can probably gather from the name, vacillators vacillate back and forth between hyper and hypovigilance. Now, sometimes people get confused because everybody has periods of time in their life that are spent both in hyper and hypovigilance, right? So if you're coming from this angle, it might seem like everybody's a vacillator, and I guess technically, sure. But what I'm talking about here is the people who are spending their days vacillating back and forth, not just I'm hyper for like years and then I was hypo for a little bit. I mean the people who are going back and forth many times in a day or in a week or in a month. Okay, so what this might look like, you wake up in the morning, you're like, okay, let's do this. Let's go. We're going to get shit done today. And you go. You're in hustle mode. You are knocking things off your to-do list, or you're just running around kind of in that chaos energy. And by the time you get to like 8 p.m., you're like, shoop, and you are back into hypovigilance, right? You're sliding right through calm AF, right back into hypovigilance. Or maybe you can keep up the hypervigilance for like the first 3 or 4 days of the week. And then you get to like Thursday and you're like crawling through Friday. And, you know, in hypovigilance shutdown, don't get off the couch or can barely function for the weekends. Okay, so this is what vacillating looks like, or some variation of this pattern. If you're a vacillator, you probably feel a little bit dizzy from how quickly you're moving back and forth between these two extremes of dysregulation. So, this sounds like you. Hello, you are my people. I myself am a vacillator. I mean, for the most part, I'm calm AF. I would say I spend most of my time in calm AF energy because I practice it all the time. I teach it every day. It's my job and it's kind of my thing. It's been my practice for like a couple decades now. But I am also a human being with an autonomic nervous system, with past trauma, with teenagers, 2 of them, a husband, a dog, a business, a mortgage, a body, and all the other things that might trigger a human nervous system, which is what I have, a human nervous system. So dysregulation is inevitable for every single human. Do I spend most of my time in calm AF energy these days? Yes. Am I also dysregulated every single day? Also, yes. Okay. My dominant pattern is I'm a vacillator. And I think this is really helpful for me, actually, to be a vacillator, because it really allows me to deeply understand all 3 of the patterns since I have plenty of experience in both hyper and hypovigilance. All right. So let's talk about the most common ways this vacillator pattern shows up so that you can recognize it. So this may be you if you are either super busy or you're doing nothing at all. You're either going 1,000,000 miles an hour or you are going 0 miles an hour. Okay. So let's use one of my favorite examples. I've used it 1,000,000 times is going on a road trip. Okay, so let's talk about what that would look like for each type. The hypervigilante would get in a car with an empty gas tank. Like there's just, the light is on. The number says it's like you've got like 2 miles or you've got 0 miles before you need to fill up again. So you get in this car if you're a hypervigilante and you just drive. Who cares? I'm just getting in the car and I'm going and I'm going to hope that whatever little drops of gas, whatever fumes are left in this tank will get me where I'm going. And since it's not going to, right, because you don't have gas in the tank, when you stop, when the hypervigilant person stops because they run out of gas, what do? They get out of the car and they start running to the gas station to get themselves like a gallon, a splash of gas, run back to their car, put the gallon of gas in it, and they drive off and do it all over again. Okay, so that's what the hypervigilant would look like. The hypovigilant would get in the car, look at the empty tank, and think, well, not gonna get to my destination. I know how this is gonna turn out. It's always how it always turns out. Even if I were to do all the things, even if I were to drive 1,000 miles per hour, I'm not gonna get there, so I'm not even gonna start. I'm not gonna even try. I'm just going to sit here and wait for someone to save me off the side of the road. And the vacillator is like, okay, I'm going to get in this car. I'm going to drive. I'm going to drive 1,000 miles per hour for however far the fumes, these drops of gas in the tank take me. And then when the car runs out of gas before I get to my destination, I am going to shut down. I'm going to sit in my car. I am not going to get out. I'm not going to be running to the gas station because, first of all, what's the point? It's not going to work anyway. I'm not going to ever get to my destination. Also, I'm really freaking tired. So I'm just going to sit. If I'm a vacillator and my car has run out of gas, I'm just going to sit in my car and I'm going to try my best to drown out the hypervigilant voice that's like, get up, Go. What are you thinking? Get out and run to the gas station right now. If you don't run to the gas station, then everyone else is going to get there before you and the world's going to crumble. I'm going to drown out that voice as long as I can by numbing out. But eventually, that hypervigilant voice is going to get louder and louder until I can't take it anymore. And then, fine, I'm going to get out of the car and I'm going to run to the gas station to buy a gallon of gas. And I'm going to come back and I'm going to repeat that cycle. Okay, so that is the vacillator. I'm going to do a little both. Hypervigilant, rushing around, hustling, and hypovigilant, shutting down, just believing that nothing is ever going to work. It's fun times. So that's the first way. The second way, your inner voice is either berating you to do more, to get up, to work harder, to try harder, to keep pushing, or it's saying, what's the point? Why bother? Nothing you do is enough, so just stop. So your inner voice vacillates between the boss and the teenager. If you don't know what I'm talking about, back around episodes like 135-ish, I talk about something I call the team. The team is this motley configuration of thinking habits that steer your mind through just about every situation. So the boss is mean, nasty, tries to motivate you through shame and fear. And the teenager grabs the steering wheel when you can't take the shame and the criticism any longer. So in the hypervigilant type, the boss mostly has the wheel. In the hypovigilant type, the teenager or the toddler or the lizard mostly is steering the wheel. And in the vacillators, if you can imagine, the whole team is up in the front seat and everybody's trying to grab the steering wheel from each other all the time, back and forth, which makes for a lot of swerving and jerky movement for you who is in the back seat, right? While the boss and the teenager are like fighting for who gets to steer the car. Okay? Your inner voice is either beating you up or shutting you down. The third way this shows up, you're constantly looking for the next thing to try. The next thing, I'm using air quotes. You believe that your answers are going to be coming from a book or a podcast or a planner or a 5-step plan. You spend your life vacillating between flying high on inspiration and dopamine hits that give you the highest beliefs. I'm going to do this. I can do this. I'm totally going to be a badass from this moment on for the rest of my life. Right? You keep that going for a little bit, or you're flat on the ground. I suck. I can't do anything. I'm so stupid to believe that I could do this. Who do you think you are? Who do you think you are? When you're in the hypervigilant, you're like, you want to know who I am? I'm a badass. And then when that crashes, because the dopamine inevitably runs out, you're in the hypovigilant side of like, yep, I suck. Here I am again. Right? You are scanning the world around you, trying to find drops of gas for your gas tank when you're a vacillator, driving as fast as you can on that drop of gas, and then sitting on the side of the road, looking around. Where am I going to get my next drop of gas? Is it this podcast? Is it this person on Instagram? Who is it? Where's it coming from? Because that's not coming from me. That's a hint, by the way. The fourth way this shows up, your relationships are imbalanced. So you get those dopamine hits oftentimes from people pleasing, from being in control, from being needed and being the giver in relationships, not just romantic relationships, all relationships. But when the gas runs out and these people that you have been giving and giving and giving to don't give back, you feel resentful. So you might pull back or isolate from them again for a while until you need that dopamine again. And then you go back to your people-pleasing energy managing, right? So you can't have a balanced relationship in a vacillator's dysregulation type. You can't really have balanced relationships in any dysregulation, but you will really notice this back and forth between like, I feel like this is the best thing ever because I'm needed and I feel like I'm being taken advantage of and I'm resentful. A fifth way that this shows up, you seem to always get sick as soon as you get to a break or a vacation or a Friday, right? Well, if you think that your dysregulated nervous system is only impacting like these nerves, or if you think your anxious thoughts are just hanging out in your head and then they go away when you're not thinking them, I mean, I hope you don't think that. I hope you understand that this is chronic stress, okay? This dysregulation that's happening all the time, that is chronic stress, and that is occurring in your body at the cellular level, which means it's impacting every single aspect of your health, every organ, every system in your body. I started noticing this little trick of like, I get sick all the time when I was in college. Actually, it's my mom would point it out. She was like, every time you get home from a semester break or you're home from summer or you have like a long weekend, I would get home on like Friday and Saturday I would be sick. And I would spend 4 or 5 days shut down. My body was like, nope, we're doing nothing, because our immune systems are running on these drops of gas. And as soon as there's like a permission slip to slow down, like a semester break or a vacation, the immune system is like, sweet, it's our time to shine, right? And you get sick. The sixth way that this shows up, you are totally in for doing things, being with people, making plans, or you are isolated from the people, from everyone. You don't look at your phone, like you're like, nobody can get a hold of you. And please understand, I am not talking about like introverts, or I consider myself an introverted extrovert. I'm not talking about you. I'm not talking about empaths. I'm not talking about highly sensitive people where you enjoy being with people, but you really need that alone time to, kind of get your motor or your cup refilled. That is actually regenerative when you actually take a break. What I'm talking about is the hypovigilant shutdown of withdrawing from life, isolating from everything, including self-care. Okay. So, because this is my type, I'm a vacillator, I could probably share a gazillion more ways to recognize you are on the vacillator roller coaster. But let's talk about why to stop. Because as I mentioned in both the hyper and hypo episodes, you need a strong why. Your logical brain listens to all this info that I'm sharing right now and is like, yeah, sure, yes. Obviously, I understand. Chronic stress is bad. This back and forth between these two different patterns of dysregulation is not doing me any favors. I get that. And the reason why you get it right now is because you're with me and you're regulated. You are safe in this moment. You are learning something. Your nervous system is regulated. So you are accessing your neocortex. But when you're triggered, that higher level thinking is less important than your survival and your survival stories. So you need to know the reason why you are willing to stop this hypervigilant to hypovigilant to hypervigilant to hypovigilant pattern. You need to build the belief in the new story that the world will not crumble, that shit will still be handled when you finally choose to live a calm AF life instead of staying on that vacillating roller coaster. So, the reasons why are the same for all the types, okay? It's a waste of time. Hypervigilance is not creating your success. You are not more productive in hypervigilant mode. Actually, you are not. Hypovigilance is not the only way you can get some downtime, because it's not downtime. Do you feel rested after you have shut down and numbed out? No. Those are two different things, okay? Downtime and hypovigilance are not the same. Why do you need to learn to show up as a calm AF energy? For your health. Your poor body. You get so mad at it when you get sick, right? When you're like, what the heck? Finally get a break and now I'm going to get sick? Yes. Your body's like, when else am I going to? Or when the numbers go up on the scale, right? High cortisol. Or you're just so tired all the time. Yes. How in the world do we expect our bodies to just keep showing up for us in perfect health when we are in a chronic state of stress? Okay? Answer me that. How? How do you expect that? That's why. That's one of the biggest reasons why. Because without your health, what do you got? Another reason, because this pattern will never, ever create the life you want. Now, if you do happen to achieve the success you want, in whatever way that looks for you, maybe it's in a career, maybe it's just being able to relax, whatever. But if you're doing it through the hypervigilant, hypovigilant, vacillating path, you will still be on the hypo vacillating path when you get to the quote unquote success. Okay? You don't get to have the career. You don't get to hustle your way to a career and then get there and then relax. No, you're going to keep hustling, which is a bummer, right? Because when will you ever actually get to enjoy something? We just had a call last week in Calm AF Life, one of the group calls, and someone was talking about she wants to create a new relationship. She's ready to create a new relationship, and she was talking about it. It was like you're trying to hypervigilantly create a relationship with someone, but then once you have it, you're like, but I just want it to be chill. I just want us to be able to chill together. It's not how it works. If you want to have a chill relationship, you want to be chill on your way in creating it, whether that's creating it for the first time or changing it now. Okay? So that's why. You're never going to create the life you want if you hold on to these patterns. All right. That's the vacillator. So now you know the 3 types of dysregulation. Make sure you take that quiz if you haven't, so you can learn even more about your dominant type. Next week, we're going to get into the next section of the nervous system series. We're going to start moving our way into what's a regulated nervous system like? What does Calm AF actually mean? So don't miss it. Make sure you're subscribed and make sure that you are practicing. Make sure that you are noticing when you are showing up, when you are getting triggered, how it feels in your body, which type it resonates with the most. Because once you have the awareness, then you can start changing those patterns. That's what we're going to start talking about next. All right. I hope you have an amazing rest of your day. I love you so much. I'll see you next time. Thanks for listening. And before you go, one more thing. So as you know, I am slightly obsessed with helping as many humans tap into their calm AFness as possible. So if this podcast has helped you, would you please leave a review, make sure you're subscribed, and share it with your friends. Also, make sure you head on over to KristenFinch.com to see how you can work with me. You can sign up for my emails and get any other goodies I have available. Until next week, I love you so much. I am so grateful that you're here. I'll see you next time.